All right, what's up everyone? What a beautiful night in New York. Now, we really have to enjoy the weather tonight because I looked at the weather outlook and it almost kind of looks a little crazy because tomorrow through Friday of next week is supposed to be raining every day and like in the 60s. But if it's raining in New York and cloudy and in the 60s, you know it's going to feel like it's in the 40s. So, well, at least the first day of May was, well, pretty nice day. It was funny because I was actually out in Brighton Beach. For those of you who don't know, Brighton Beach is the last stop on the B train, and Brighton Beach is, I'd say, most famous for being known as Little Odessa, or Little Russia, or Little Ukraine. There's a huge Russian and Ukrainian population out there. It is a very, very cool neighborhood. I'm doing some work at the Oceana complex over there, so but yeah, it's right on the water. It's very close to Coney Island, and it's a beautiful beach, but it feels really cold out there. And yeah, anyway, I digress. Good to see everybody. We're looking at the Plaza Hotel tonight. We'll get started here in just a moment. Before we kick things off, I do want to get a little bit of an update on the new Grand Army Plaza. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I mean, we've been gone for so long. We're finally back. But if you look right outside of the Plaza Hotel, on the corner of West 58th Street and 5th, this is Grand Army Plaza. And this thing has really kind of fallen into disrepair. I don't know if you remember me saying this, but this spot used to be the #1 place in New York City for rats. Like by far, not even a question. So the city actually took it upon themselves to do a complete rip and replace. So I think it's going to be finished this summer. So we'll check it out. You could kind of see all the, how should I say this? All the new landscaping. There actually is brand new concrete work there, and they're restoring the original fountain, which is long, long overdue because it's right outside of the Plaza Hotel. I mean, if people are going to be spending $1,000 plus for a night in a hotel, and they have like a really ratty and rundown park right outside, really not the best look there. So anyway, we'll just do the quick audio and visual check as we kind of head over by Grand Army Plaza South, and yeah, we'll get started. So if you guys can hear us, just leave a thumbs up in the chat there, and we'll get started here momentarily. I see Alan. Good to see you. Let me see if I can give you guys a little peek inside of here through the fence. I mean, they're doing a really great job. You can see all the new concrete work, and then of course over here you have the GM building. Harry Mackellow, by the way, used to own this, and you can see 432 Park Avenue at the top right. Now, speaking of the Apple Store, Apple and Tim Cook had earnings today. I thought earnings were pretty solid. That's going to be one of the main topics for tonight's broadcast, is big tech earnings. This week has been really action-packed and jam-packed with big tech earnings. Last night we briefly talked about Meta, which is, you know, Facebook, Zuckerberg's company, Instagram, all that. Really great quarter. Really, really great quarter. Also today we had Amazon. So we're going to get a little bit of an update from Andy Jasse and team on Amazon AWS. And then we also had Tim Cook and company giving a little bit of guidance in terms of tariffs. I did not get the opportunity to listen to the entire call. However, I did read through the transcript. And I think Apple is expecting about a $900 million hit in a moment. I'm just trying to get you guys through the fence here. But yeah, this is all new concrete work. This used to be all busted up and looked terrible, but this is pretty exciting stuff. Also, Microsoft reported earnings last night. We didn't have enough time to talk about that. But in general, you know, cloud growth is really, really strong. Pretty much at all the major cloud providers growing at 20% plus, which is fantastic. Anyway, I see Richard Scott is here, says welcome back. Thank you, Richard. I see Larry Adams is here, Patrick New York, DC322, UniJ23 is joining us, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining, and it's good to be back. I see Joe Ratz is here, Doc7, Mr. Vernado is in the house, Matthew is here, what's going on? And we're right outside of the Sherry Netherland Hotel, which I always have to mention. You know, in markets like this, when we finally got that follow-through day, I really think of Jesse Livermore, right? A lot of people want to, you know, get whipped in and out of a lot of these stocks. One of my favorite excerpts from the book, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, is he says, the money is made in the sitting, not in the trading. And that's one of my favorite excerpts from that book. The money is made in my sitting, not in my trading. And that really reigns true today even more so, right? Because the vast majority of stock market action actually takes place after hours. So if you're kind of, you know, whipping in and out of these names on a daily basis or day trading, you're not really going to catch the meat of that move. So if you want to size into a position, you know, in a company that consistently beats earnings expectations and raises forward guidance, well, that stock over the long term is going to tend to go up, right? When you think about all the companies we're going to talk about tonight, like Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet. I see Larry Adams is here, Peter, B-Ball, welcome. Frank the Tank is here, Stephanie Stearns, welcome to Central Park South. It's a beautiful night, the last beautiful night we're going to have. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anybody else. I see Kevin. I see Model Win is here, Lark Bark. Says glad to have you back. I'm really happy to be back, and thank you for the warm welcome. Wow, guys, look at the color on this Tesla. Man, I love that color. I think that's probably my favorite color scheme on a Tesla I've ever seen, to be quite blunt and frank. We'll talk about Tesla tonight. Mark Summers, what's going on? Jeff in Southern Tier, New York. Cheers. Emma says glad you're feeling better. I'm glad I'm feeling better too. I'm on a dose of antibiotics, so I am no longer contagious, and I'm feeling a lot better. Feeling a lot better. Another thing that I think may be contributing to maybe my sinus issues is the allergies that I was reading is going to be higher than normal this year. Did anybody else read that? Especially in the Northeast. I mean, look at all this pollen and everything on the floor. So maybe that has something to do with it. DJ Meltdown is here, Lark Bark, what's up? Anyway, we'll get started. So good evening, everybody, and welcome back again to Walks and Wall Street. Today's May 1st. Whoa, it's kind of crazy. Wow, May 1st, 2025. Tonight, we're really going to be doing, I would say, a deeper dive into the big tech earnings. Obviously, today, we heard from Amazon, who beat expectations. We heard from Apple, Tim Cook's company, which also beat expectations, but there was a little bit of I would say, a hiccup there in terms of guidance. I would say out of all the major tech companies, right, like Meta, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, and Apple, I would say that Apple probably has the most exposure to supply chain issues and things surrounding the tariffs. And I think everybody would probably agree with that. As always, if you go to the investor relations page on Apple's website, Amazon's website, you could download the earnings transcript, and you could also join the call. If you just punch in your email, it'll send you a link to a recording of the call, and you could listen to it yourself. We'll quickly just do a high-level overview of some of the main highlights that I like to do in terms of the sales numbers and the net income, right? A lot of times people like to talk about EBITDA. I like to talk about net income because that is actually the profitability after everything, right? After all taxes are paid, after depreciation, every single thing, how much money these companies made. And, you know, I'll put it like this. As we have this beautiful view of the new Xtel Tower that's overlooking Central Park, regardless of all the craziness that's going on in the US economy and the global economy, we could say with 100% certainty that big tech is still firing on all cylinders. So let's take a step back and talk about what happened yesterday when we heard from our good friend Mark Zuckerberg. Meta reported sales of $42 billion worth of sales on a net income of $16.6 billion. So Meta made just over $16 billion in the first 3 months of the year, which is pretty impressive. I believe that was a 13% increase in net income on a year-over-year basis. Amazon today reported $155 billion worth of sales on a net income of $17.13 billion, which is pretty fantastic. Obviously, you know, maybe I'll actually revise what I said earlier. I said that Apple's probably the tech company that has the most exposure to tariffs. Maybe I'll throw Amazon in that mix, right? Maybe they're tied neck and neck. Although, you know, over the years, and even currently now, we've been talking about this for a year, Apple specifically has really been getting ahead of the game, mainly due to the pandemic, and reshoring a lot of that supply chain and moving a lot of the manufacturing capacity to India. So this has already been happening. I was even reading an article today that was alleging that, you know, Tim Cook and Apple is moving a lot of manufacturing capacity to India to kind of circumvent the tariffs. That's kind of like a half-truth. I mean, this has already been going on. Apple has had a massive presence in India, and companies all over the world actually have kind of learned their lesson from the pandemic and understand that they can't have such a heavy reliance on China, right? So a lot of that manufacturing capacity has gone to India. A lot of that manufacturing capacity has gone to Vietnam and other countries of the like. But Amazon, again, $155 billion worth of revenue on $17.13 billion of net income. Now, during earnings season, when we're talking about big tech, my number one category that I like to hammer down and focus on is cloud computing revenue. If we review the 4 big cloud providers, is obviously Amazon AWS, which reported today about $29.3 billion worth of revenue for them. Then we have Alphabet's Google Cloud, and then you have Microsoft's Microsoft Azure. I guess you can kind of throw Oracle in the mix too. I usually don't like to throw Oracle in the mix, but you know, Larry Ellison has really been doing wonders at that company. So I want to take a quick pause here because I want to showcase an Art Deco stunner here, which is the JW Marriott Essex House and the new Bourbon Steak restaurant here. Hey, Lemonade, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Hope you're well. Paulus is breaking news. China says it's evaluating U.S. overtures to initiate tariff talks. I think all of that tariff news is, and we kind of covered this yesterday, all of that is going to be totally fake and nonsense. So I believe all of the tariff quote unquote news, either in a positive light or a negative light, is kind of irrelevant to investors. At least that in my opinion right now. The pain trade to the downside on the tariffs already happened, and there's been so much fake news as it relates to tariffs on both the positive front, right? How many times have we woken up in the morning and you know, across the Bloomberg terminal, you know, Secretary Besson says we're this close to signing a trade deal with Japan, or this, we're so close to signing a deal with Vietnam or Japan, right? And then 2 seconds later across the screen on Reuters is like, oh, actually, you know, we have a source in Japan and there was no such thing, there was no such talk. So I would actually like mute all of those keywords as it relates to the tariffs. I think it's all bullshit, excuse my language, and just wait until the deals are written in ink. And I think the market is starting to price that in, right? So from a point of view as an investor, I would just focus on the earnings. The real volatility encompassing the tariffs, I think are relatively gone, and that's showcased by the VIX, right? If you look at the CBOE volatility index of the VIX, it's come down significantly. I would say for the first month of this tariff mayhem, there was a lot of uncertainty and the market was making crazy moves on, you know, are we going to get a deal? Or, you know, is Howard Lutnick going to convince Trump to roll things back? And now I think the market just understands that nothing is true unless a deal is signed in ink. That's just kind of my whole take on that. Because you never really know what's real. And you know, I think the last thing I'll say about it is I've noticed even, you know, some dicey reporting from the Wall Street Journal, which I don't appreciate, but I understand they want to get their clicks, they want to get their headlines, they want to generate the advertising revenue. Media organizations surrounding the tariffs, they just want to be first. They don't really want to be right anymore, right? So, you know, the Washington Post wants to be the first person to break a tariff deal, right? The Wall Street Journal wants to be the first person to break a tariff deal, right? And I get it, but it's all inside sources say, or person familiar with the matter. Like, this is all nonsense stuff. Like, I could call up the Wall Street Journal and put in a bullshit tip, say, hey, I just had a cocktail with President Trump. You know, I got him a little bit sauced up, and he admitted that he's going to roll back all the tariffs on President Xi, right? And I could just drop that to the Wall Street Journal. It seems like that's the integrity of the journalism about the tariffs now. Anyway, I digress. So we'll move on to Apple. But let's first check the status here. This building is 200 Central Park South, and this is a co-op building. And it is under construction, and it looks like they're getting a brand new valet, and it actually looks kind of cool. Actually looks really good. I wonder what how large the assessment was here for them to do that, but it looks like they're getting a brand new roundabout and a brand new valet here at 200 Central Park South. And great views overlooking 15 Central Park West as well. Optimus 17, what's up? Daniel J says, hey there, happy Thursday. The suspension of the de minimis clause is going to cause a real problem. Have you heard anything about this? I have not heard anything about that. Mean Hornet, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. Noodles says, I read that the S&P wasn't going to go over 5,500 for a few months, and here we are. Yeah, and you know, interestingly, I was at the desk earlier. We'll get back onto the topic of big tech in a second, but you notice what market right now is really on a tear. It may have faded a little bit, but look at the Japanese markets right now. Right at the open, these things took off like a bat out of hell. I was at the desk and I was looking, I was like, my God, talk about a V-shaped bottom on the Nikkei index. Really impressive action there. I'm not sure if anybody wants to pull it up in real time, but I think we're printing a little over 1% up on the Nikkei over there in Japan right now, which is a good sign for U.S. markets opening tomorrow. Speaking of Vornado, I don't know if Doc 7 is still in here. This is his building, 220 Central Park South. A really stunning limestone style facade. The architect on this building was the same architect on 15 Central Park West, and that is Robert A.M. Stern. Beautiful limestone facades here. There's actually two separate buildings. A lot of people don't know that. When you're looking at 220 Central Park South from the Central Park South side, it kind of looks like one building, but it's actually two individual buildings. If you kind of look at it from the Columbus Circle side, you could see that a little bit clearer, so to speak. Mark Summers feels like the stock market's moving on from the tariff drama, but real estate's still dragging a bit. Buyers are cautious and fear sticks around longer in housing. That's a really good point, and I mean, I've even seen that in my business. I mean, feel free to comment on what you've been seeing, but yeah, I mean, this stuff has scared a lot of people. I mean, we've had people back out of deals. You know, we were about to do a deal with this family who was gonna, you know, totally gut a townhome on the Upper East Side, and they totally reneged on the deal because they're like, oh my gosh, you know, we think that all of the supplies that we need to get from our contractor is going to go up due to the tariffs, and we just don't want to, you know, dip our toe in the market right now. And there was really no salvaging that, and I get that, but yeah, it definitely has had an impact. I would say more broadly, though, as well, the last 3 years in housing, in terms of sales volume, has really been down. I mean, if anybody here is in the real estate business in terms of specifically residential and commercial, I guess, real estate sales, the last 3 years have been brutally tough in terms of just getting deals done, right? And it's been very strange because, well, I shouldn't say strange. It's just been out of character because valuations haven't come down. Ooh, almost a head-on collision there. I think I told you guys, I've been seeing tons of head-on collisions with food delivery bike guys because I think there's just so many new people and they don't understand the direction of the bike lanes. But in New York City, if you're going to be biking or cycling in New York City, you really have to pay attention to the direction of the bike lane because we have massive traffic here. I've seen some gnarly accidents. Anyway, but yeah, the last 3 years, in terms of just really existing home sales and new home sales, have been at the lowest level they've been since the early 90s. And that's mainly because we were in a higher interest rate environment. And there's so much debt outstanding that is at very, very low interest rates, right? And we've kind of talked about this topic, you know, to the point of ad nauseum, but, you know, over the last decade, the Fed has really, you know, held interest rates artificially low, right? Artificially suppressing rates. You could say the decade of ZIRP, zero interest rate policy. So the theory is if you have all of this debt outstanding, right, at very, very low interest rates, and let's say I'm in a single family home and I have a 3% interest rate on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage and my monthly payments, you know, $2,000, you know, there's just no way I'm going to be able to sell my house, right? I'll probably be able to sell it at a profit, but when I go buy another home, well, I'm going to have to pay 100% more on my money, right? Because interest rates is essentially just the price of money, and your monthly payment's probably going to double. So people are just kind of sitting tight right now. Additionally to that point, a lot of deals just aren't penciling, right? The divergence between what a seller is willing to pay and what a buyer is willing to sell for is just so wide right now. And I mean, I've had conversations with sellers. I'm like, look, this is probably what the property is going to trade at right now. And they tell me, like, I'd just rather hold on to it. And, you know, maybe more specifically, more nichely, I should say, in Manhattan, you know, a lot of these people here don't really need to sell. A lot of these people, I mean, just to be blunt, they have money. So, I mean, if they own the place, you know, they probably own another place somewhere else, and they'll just eat the carrying costs. They'll pay the common charges, they'll, you know, pay the taxes, and they don't really need to fire sale it. So that's been a real problem for the market because things aren't really moving. So it's a really good point. And then couple, you know, with that, to your point, you know, we just got some consumer sentiment numbers out. I'm sure all of you have been watching that. The University of Michigan consumer sentiment numbers came out, and we're just like dropping through the floor, right? Americans are very, very pessimistic on the economy, and consumers are very pessimistic too. Which is like a double-edged sword, because if you're thinking about it from a market's perspective, that is very reminiscent of a major cyclical bottom in the market when you have stocks bottoming in a V-shaped fashion while the news is so bleak, while the public is so negative on the outlook of the economy. That is the magic elixir, so to speak, of a lockout rally, coupled with the fact that we just got a negative GDP print. So if we get another one, which is highly likely, by the way, you know, the media is going to have a field day with that and really, really scare the hell out of people, which I think will be a major opportunity. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, overall, generally, right, before we continue on with the tech stuff, I mean, I've been out of pocket for a long time, but like honestly speaking, in the audience, what is your outlook on the economy? Are you guys pessimistic? Are you optimistic? And, you know, don't just go with my bias. I mean, what are you guys seeing out there in terms of, you know, talking with your customers, talking with your neighbors or your spouse? What is the sentiment out there? While we're waiting for those answers to roll in, this is 1 Central Park West. This is the Trump International Hotel and Tower. You have 3 doors here. Door number 1 is the Jean Georges. That's the Michelin star steakhouse. The door in the center is to the hotel, and the door on the right is the residences, which is an awesome hotel here because it has some of the best views of Central Park. So if you know, if it's in your budget, ask to have one of the rooms that are overlooking Central Park, because not only do you get great park views, you get really unbelievable Billionaires Row views too. You can see pretty much every single building on New York City's Billionaires Row. It's kind of interesting. Monday says, honestly, don't even know what to think. I think I'll be stagnant as it goes. Oh, it'll be stagnant as it goes back and forth a little bit. Interesting. I mean, a lot of people share that sentiment, right? Fear. The number one thing that fear causes, which a lot of people don't know, but subconsciously it's true, it causes paralyzation, right? You can't make a decision. You know, that's the number one thing, unfortunately, that fear causes, which I think holds a lot of people back, not only in the markets, but in life. When you're really terrified about something, right? When you're shell-shocked, most people just kind of freeze up and do nothing. And I think really after the 2008 financial crisis, I'm not trying to be funny here, but there has been a lot of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, in terms of the financial markets, and maybe rightfully so, right? I mean, if anybody here is old enough to have been able to live through the financial crisis, you know, maybe you lost money, maybe you foreclosed on your home. I mean, I don't know. It was a very, very difficult time. Now, every time the market has a 10% correction, a 15% correction, everybody's saying it's the next 2008, it's the next, financial crisis. When not every single correction and wiggle and jiggle in the market leads to a cataclysmic financial collapse. But it seems like that's what people have been conditioned to believe. This is an awesome shot of Central Park Tower and 220 Central Park South. Jean Paul says fear of recession can cause a recession. Andrew O'Donovan says in tomorrow's jobs numbers, I'm specifically interested in continual claims number. It's going to be interesting to see what the market's reaction is to that, right? Because if we get a really bad jobs number, let's just talk hypothetical for a second. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. But if we get a terrible number tomorrow and the market is flat or rallies on that, that is your green light that this market, like the bottom is in. I already think the bottom is in, but that would just be like 110% confirmation. If we get a piss poor jobs number tomorrow and we close at the dead high of the day and the high of the week, that would be significant. That would be significant. It's a similar, kind of similar thought process to what we were talking about yesterday with Tesla, right? Tesla, horrible earnings. I mean, just really, really bad stuff. But the stock actually rallied on that. And that's very telling. Although Apple, I think, is down, 4% after hours, and I also think Amazon is off about 4 or 5% after hours too. We'll see if that holds, because I think futures is up a little bit, and Japan is really rocking. Asia is doing really well, at least in the session right now. Guys, look at how beautiful 15 Central Park West is. It's just a stunning property. Robert A.M. Stern building. Really, really gorgeous property. I think there's over 80,000 individual pieces of limestone here. And they sourced them from the same Indiana rock quarry that made the Empire State Building. Cynthia's here, DC322, welcome. Rafa says, do you have any textbook recommendations for beginner finance students? Yeah, I think the Brillian-Myers corporate finance textbooks are really good. I think you should just have one in your collection. Now, if you're a beginner finance student, I would say write this name down. And we talk about this professor all the time. He's local to New York City. He teaches at the NYU Stern School of Business. It's Professor Aswat Damodaran. And his lectures are so sought after at NYU that his courses fill up in 2 hours of being posted. But the good news is Professor Damodaran is a really, really good guy, and he allows you to take his courses for free online. Now, obviously, you're not going to get credit for it, right? But you could take it. So if you navigate over to his personal YouTube channel, Professor Damodaran's, he posts all of his lectures for free on YouTube. These are 4-hour in-depth corporate finance and security analysis lectures. And you could even go to his personal website and download a copy of the syllabus. So you could follow along with the course, and you could even take the final exam. He has the final exams there for you to take. So I think, to answer your question, if you're a beginner in finance and you're looking for the basics and learn and really want to get a firm understanding, I would say any of the Brillian-Myers textbooks, and go check out Professor Damodaran's courses. So you don't have to spend 75 grand at NYU Stern School of Business if you want to be a little bit of an autodidact. He provides all of the information for you for free, which is really great. Miguel says energy costs have to come down a lot. That will help consumers. Oil is at $59. True. Hey, everything in Miami's here. It says, hey buddy, glad to see you're back streaming. Yeah, I'm glad to be back too. Hopefully we'll be back on a normal schedule now. Hang with Mark Mom, what's going on? It says, good to see you live again. I hope everybody's taking advantage of those market dips. I taught my son how to make money from them. Very good, very cool. Yeah, it's, I think this is the transition period from a bear to a bull. kind of what we discussed yesterday. Scott Solomon, thank you very much. Hey, Anderson, what's going on? Says he also shares spreadsheets on his blogs. Yes, so he has templates of his financial models. So if you're also interested in learning how to build a DCF model or any of the major models that you would use if you're going into a career in investment banking or something like that, he has them all for free as well, which is really a good, useful tool. Andrew O'Donovan says Warren Buffett bought Apple at the bottom years ago and sold most of his shares at the top. That's a very huge profit. Speaking of Apple, I think they authorized today a very large share repurchase program. I forget the exact dollar amount. I apologize. I think I told everybody I was I was pretty much in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn all day today. And it was a very busy day, and I got back at the desk and I just tried to get on as many calls as I could. But that's another thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that about Apple, because it reminded me of something I wanted to talk about tonight. Usually, during times of extreme volatility and extreme drawdown, you start to see companies authorize share repurchase programs, and you see a lot of insider buying as well. And we've been seeing that slowly but surely over the past week. Companies choosing to take advantage of this volatility and buy their own stock, right? Signaling to the market that they think that their shares are undervalued. And I also believe we have a few insider buys, or a few notable insider buys from some Tesla executives, which is pretty interesting. Powell says Apple announced a $100 billion share buyback program tonight. Thank you for that, by the way. I forgot how much it was. But speaking of Apple, I guess we'll kind of go right back into it. Unbelievable earnings, I think. I mean, check out these numbers. So Apple reported sales of $95.4 billion with a net income of $24.78 billion. I mean, think about that for a second. A company making over $24 billion in the first 3 months of the year. I mean, that's super, super powerhouse stuff. Incredibly impressive. Now, digging a little bit deeper, or diving a little bit deeper into the report, I'm very impressed with the services revenue, right? Also, I'm very impressed with how Apple has been able to maintain a lot of their gross margins. So, services revenue came in at $26.65 billion for Apple, and gross margins were 47.1%. I mean, think about that for a second. 47.1% gross margins for Apple. So, again, I know I said that we have to kind of look through all the tariff talk stuff, but just conceptualize this fact for a moment. Think about the buffer and the leeway a lot of these companies have in dealing with these tariffs. I think the exact amount that Tim Cook said on the call today, I think he said it's going to be about a $900 million hit to the business, I think. Maybe somebody could help me out. But look, those margins are extremely beefy, and that gives them a lot of wiggle room to navigate this. So that leads me to believe all of this is going to be very, very short term, right? All this is going to be very, very short term, in my humble opinion. Let's check out Lincoln Center tonight. Looks like there's a show getting out. And as always, if you're enjoying the broadcast tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We're going to be doing these live streams pretty much every day starting at 8:45 p.m. And we also post our standalone videos as well. Hey, Nora Kins, what's going on? Says, hey everybody, glad the walks are back. you and me both. Thanks for rejoining after about a month-long hiatus. It's a beautiful night in New York. Lincoln Center looks fantastic. And the weekend's going to be pretty crummy. It's going to be pouring raining. It sucks. But it is what it is. At least we'll kind of have an opportunity to walk around tonight, I guess. A little bit of road rage going on over there. I'll give you guys a little bit of a New York City tip. If you're thinking about visiting New York City this summer, one of my favorite free activities to do is right here. Essentially what Lincoln Center does is they lay out probably what seems like hundreds of folding chairs right in the plaza here, and they have operas outdoor. So they have this massive projector that they kind of hang over the fountain there, and they build a massive projector screen here, and you could watch the opera at Lincoln Center from the outside. And it's free, no charge, and I believe that's in August. So do a little bit of research in that and mark that on your calendars. Kevin is here. What's going on, Kevin? Mean Hornets says need more Miami walks. We have a ton of them up on our videos tab. If you guys go to the videos tab of the channel, you guys will see just an unbelievable number of volume of Miami, Bal Harbour, New York City, things like that. Mark Summers says, Tom, have you officially moved office locations yet? Yeah, we have. We are now at 590 Madison, which is funny because we moved literally across the street. So we're in the IBM building now. So we are in the building that's attached to Trump Tower via the atrium. Peter says, are you finding time to resume your newsletter, or is your ex posting a substitute? We're going to resume the newsletter in due time, probably this month. We'll probably send it out in May. Madison 32 says, I've seen where excuse me. I still have this sinus infection. Kimberly Clark is going to bring back work to the States and invest $2 billion over 5 years to expand manufacturing, 900 new jobs. Very nice. I'm kind of a little bit torn on the whole thing about, well, how should I put that? Look, you know, and we talked about this before on our topic of globalization. All of the United States manufacturing was sent overseas on purpose. I don't think many people realize this, right? This wasn't by accident, okay? The United States wanted to transition their economy from very, very laborious and quite frankly low margin manufacturing business to very, very, you know, high tech, high margin, you know, big paying services. So it's going to be really difficult to bring back like these factory jobs. It just is. To the extent where you're talking about like Foxconn workers, you know, putting together little, you know, trinkets and twisting screws into an iPhone, right? I mean, these people are making like $5 a day. You know, that stuff is not going to come back unless it just gets totally automated away. There is a section of manufacturing that can come back and that should come back, but it's probably going to be reshoring to North America in general. Maybe not the United States, but, you know, perhaps Mexico and Canada. But if you think about where a lot of this stuff is produced and manufactured, Vietnam, China, it's like that for a reason. And it's very hard to unwind all of that. That's kind of what I'll say about it. And you also have to say, do you want those kind of jobs? Here's another thing, and I think one of you actually sent me this interview. Recently, Ken Griffin, who is the founder of Citadel, hedge fund market maker on Wall Street, he sat down with Andrew Ross Sorkin at the New York Times Deal Book Summit, and I'll kind of paraphrase what he said. I don't want to misquote him, so just give me some grace here. He said, if you look at the unemployment rate in the United States, right, we're under 4%, around 4%. If these jobs come back, essentially he said that America has really moved on from that point in time. And then he goes on to talking about the progression of a country from a developing nation to a developed nation, and how usually those manufacturing facilities and those manufacturing jobs rotate and leave to developing countries as they build into developed countries. So we're already kind of at the peak stage, so to speak. So I think it's going to be difficult to, bring back as much manufacturing as maybe the administration would like. But, I mean, anybody have an opinion on that? That's just kind of my take. I see Susanna Q4 is here. What's going on? Carl Roth, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Hey, David, what's going on? It's great to see you in New York City again. Appreciate that. Hang with Mark Moms as well. I have seen a few high school dropouts that would like a job like that now. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Ike Voorhees says, Tom, what is your take on the Discover Capital One merger going through? I think it's going to be a positive, and I anticipated it going through, particularly with this pro-business friendly environment. What I'm more excited about, actually, that has to do with the financial markets, but it has to do with the new financial markets, that I like to say, is the listing. I believe May 16th is going to be the listing on NASDAQ, Mike Novograt's company, Galaxy Digital. So I'm very, very excited for that. So maybe just mark that on your calendars. I believe it trades on the Toronto Stock Exchange right now. I believe under the ticker symbol GLXY, Galaxy. And they are set to list on the NASDAQ May 16th. Hey, Bobby B, what's going on? B-Ball says those jobs aren't coming back. Low margins with the need for low wages to produce the product. They're definitely not coming back. Yeah, and look, we could have a massive conversation about globalization. And I have an interesting theory in terms of more of like a geopolitical perspective, that globalization is really the reason why we haven't had a third world war. I have this theory. I'm not saying it's right, but every single country is so interdependent on one another that we all, even though we have our differences and we may feud with China, we may, feud with Russia, they may not like our way of life, we may not like their way of life. But if the U.S. consumer stops spending, President Xi is not going to be very happy, right? Because we buy all of China's stuff. China is the workshop of the world. And the American consumer is the powerhouse who buys all of China's stuff. So in a weird kind of way, we are so interdependent on one another that if the United States falters, that's not in China's best interest. And if China falters, that's not in our best interest, right? And this was really put on display, by the way, in a major way during the pandemic. because if you remember correctly, 3 years after the pandemic is how long it took to get our supply chains back to normal. Give me 1 second here. Sorry about that. The pandemic really exposed just how reliant the world was on China for manufacturing, that all of our supply chains, right? Does anybody remember us on the stream talking about the semiconductor shortages? Like every night it was, semiconductor shortage every night for 3 years, okay? And that has prompted companies like Apple to take a lot of their manufacturing capacity away from China and give it to India. If you think about the CHIPS and the Science Act, that was used to provide subsidy to a lot of chip companies to build fabs in the United States. That all kind of had to do with the reliance on China. Hey, Top Cat, good to see you. Carl Roth says, yes, those jobs are definitely coming back because of automation. That's the next stage of manufacturing. We need manufacturing, and automation will bring it back for sure. Yeah, to your point, to Carl's point, one of the things that we've been covering here is just the massive amount of investment that, I'll just use Amazon as an example, that Amazon specifically is making into fully autonomous warehouses, right? So if anybody's ever worked in an Amazon warehouse, it is extremely, extremely laborious. Okay, and I'm not trying to be negative or talk bad about anybody's job, but it's a very, very laborious, tedious, and very stressful and strenuous job, right? Pick, packing, and shipping things. Just is. So Amazon is doubling and tripling down on fully autonomous warehouses, okay? Not only is that gonna probably explode profit margins, right, because you could work a robot 24/7, 365, that is going to act as a model book for other businesses. So just think about the manufacturing sector as a whole. What percentage of that is going to be automated? I don't want to say automated away, I'll just say automated. Is it 30%? Is it 50%? What is it? All right, it's definitely not zero, okay? Maybe it's 50%. Man, it's windy and I forgot the wind guard tonight. Hey, NBA Elias says, welcome back, Tom. Thank you for having the live stream up and running, especially during this challenging business climate. Indeed. Definitely feeling a little bit better. And we are back from South Florida. Let me know if you could hear the wind noise in the mic, because the wind is like howling up Broadway right now. Middle Age Grind. Thanks for joining. Yeah, unfortunately it's windy because a lot of the storms are coming in. So I don't know if you guys know, but all of next week is going to be absolutely miserable. It's going to be raining, cloudy, and 60 degrees every week. Jeez. Sonny H, what's going on? Hey, the 7-9 Frank, what's going on? Danny Walker says, Thomas, how many Apple products will those robots be buying? I don't think they'd be buying any. My rebuttal to that would be, that is really the number one criticism of automating things away, right? You know, when we talk about automation, you know, we talk about the destruction of jobs, and people are like, well, if only the robots are doing the jobs, there's going to be no jobs for anybody else. Well, it's kind of like you have to do a post-analysis on, I would just say do a post-analysis on the Industrial Revolution, right? Think about all the think about all the jobs that were destroyed during the Industrial Revolution, but also think about simultaneously all the jobs that were created as a result thereof, the Industrial Revolution, right? Then do a post-analysis of the age of the internet, right? Think about all of the jobs the internet absolutely destroyed, but then think about all of the jobs simultaneously the internet created. So automation is going to destroy a lot of jobs. That's just the truth. But simultaneously, it is going to create, if you go by historical standards, artificial intelligence and robotics and automation should create about 5 jobs for every 1 job it destroys. Now, the follow-up question to that is, okay, well, name the jobs that they're going to create. To which my answer is, I don't know, I can't name the jobs because they don't exist. They quite literally do not even exist yet. It's kind of like we have to lean into the unknown, right? What do you guys think of One Central Park West? Thumbs up or thumbs down on this building? Nora Kins says, people talk about robots taking away accessible jobs, but those jobs also have extremely high rates of accidents and injury. Robots don't have to be the enemy. I agree. I think it's going to increase quality of life, right? You know, I'll tell you a quick story about quality of life. When I was a kid, one of my first jobs was I was a pizza delivery guy, just a pizza delivery boy. And one of my regular customers was this gentleman who worked in a cardboard factory. And again, I just want to preface this by saying, I'm not talking down on anybody's job. I know there's like some trolls that say, you know, I'm not bashing anybody's job. Okay, I respect a hard day's work. I respect everybody in everybody's career path. But I would talk to this guy, and working in this cardboard plant just seemed like so laborious and just tedious and, you know, draining. I mean, there's sirens going off. They have alarms on when you could take your shift. You know, these parts on these machines that are spitting out the cardboard are moving so fast. Like, could you imagine if an arm gets caught in there, or maybe your shirt gets caught in there? I mean, talk about injury. I mean, it's a disaster. Again, going back to before the, you know, really the labor union movement in the United States, you know, we used to have 15, 16-year-old kids getting, you know, limbs chopped off in factories, right? So, I mean, do we want to stay where we've always been forever, right? Do we want, you know, sweatshops where it's dangerous and dirty working conditions, or do we want to advance society forward and make things safer for people? That's kind of the way I think about it. This is the Deutsche Bank Center, formerly known as the AOL Time Warner Center. I told this story a million times, but right where the Deutsche Bank Center sits now, this used to be the Manhattan Convention Center. And when they built the Jacob Javits Center right on the Hudson River near what is now known as the Hudson Yards, it really put the Manhattan Convention Center out of business. So this neighborhood here was actually not the best. It was like kind of ratty, kind of run down, until Related came in and bought the land to propose to build the AOL Time Warner Center. And nobody thought it was going to be a successful project because it resembled the World Trade Center. And they're like, post 9/11, nobody's going to want to lease office space. Nobody's going to want to live or work in a building that resembles the World Trade Center. Well, long story short, they went through with the plans anyway, and it was a major success and really revitalized the Columbus Circle area, which made way for the 2008 construction of 15 Central Park West, which allowed Gary Burnett to build this staple building here, which is 157. And now this is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the entire world in terms of real estate. It's kind of crazy how one developer taking a big risk could either make or break a neighborhood. And now it's the headquarters of the German bank, Deutsche Bank. Hey, Ron says I worked at 10 Columbus Circle. Very nice. So where is 10 Columbus Circle? This is 2 Columbus Circle. 10 is probably here, right? Yeah, Madison 32 says, Tom, sometime in the future, can we stroll over to 40 Wall Street and take a look? Absolutely. We'll probably do that next week. But good to see you, Madison 32. David says, I work in shipping, logistics, and receiving. Current place has major safety rules. People still get hurt. Yeah, which is terrible. Top Cat says, if too many jobs are taken away, it brings the concept of universal basic income back into discussion. There's a really good book that was written about this by a former presidential candidate named Andrew Yang. I don't necessarily agree with everything this guy says, but I do respect him a lot. He's a very smart guy, very successful entrepreneur, has made a lot of money in his career, and he wrote a book kind of spelling out the potential need for some sort of universal basic income as artificial intelligence really makes its way through and as robotics and automation makes its way through. And he was talking about this all the way back in 2013. I don't think it'll get to that point, but maybe, I mean, you don't know. I mean, the rate of acceleration that AI is undergoing is really unbelievable. I mean, how many people in the audience today on a daily basis use GTP4 or Grok or Gemini or whatnot, right? Pretty much every single day, I'm using Grok for almost everything. And it's very, very good, like extremely good. I don't know if I told you this story, but when I touched down in Miami, I went back to my house, and I haven't been back to my house in a long time because I've had it rented. So I tried to start my Vespa and it wouldn't start. And usually, you know, I'm lazy, so I just call the tow truck and I send the Vespa to the shop, right? But I'm like, you know what? I really shouldn't be lazy. I shouldn't be so wasteful with money, right? Spend $200 for a tow and then spend another $150 for that to have these people, you know, get the Vespa up and running. So I literally went to Grok, took a picture of my Vespa, and started explaining the problems I was having. And it literally walked me through step by step how to troubleshoot and fix the Vespa, right, by sending it pictures. So I would, you know, say, hey, where is the spark plug? Okay, send me a picture of it. Where's the carburetor? Okay, send me a picture of it. You know, try this, you know, unscrew this. You know, try, you know, everything. It was just the most incredible thing ever. And we've gotten to a point where we could pull up our phone, take a picture of something, and ask AI, hey, this isn't working, here are the symptoms of the problem, can you help me troubleshoot? And it knows it like the best mechanic ever. It was a really, really impressive thing. And 2 hours later, the thing was up and running. Really, really crazy. Check the logic, says, do I have AAA? No, I don't have AAA. David says YouTube videos are good for repairing things too. Absolutely. But I think what AI does as the next step is it cuts down the time, right? Because I use YouTube tutorials for a lot of things around the house, like fixing plumbing issues and, you know, simple like HVAC fixes and leaks and things like that. But you have to kind of like use search, scroll through the videos, and, you know, maybe this video isn't going to solve my problem, so I wasted 20 minutes watching the video. With AI, it's here's the problem, here's the photo of it, tell me what I need to do. And it literally tells you what you need to do, and it's really crazy. Ibrahim Azam says the use of AI seems normal to me, and I don't find it crazy or unbelievable. It's kind of wild. I mean, Ibrahim, you're at the age where you pretty much grew up in the age of AI. Nora says, I work in the legal field, and currently you could use AI like a tool, but you have to confirm everything it gives back. That is true, and I find it that Grok is a lot more reliable in terms of data as it relates to GTP. Cheese Puff says AI will be outstanding in medicine. It's yesterday. I mean, just think about all the little teeny things we're talking about right now. AI, automation, like all the great things it's going to do. We're not even scratching the surface of what's to come down the pike. And people are still bearish on markets overall. Oh, this guy's in the bus lane. One thing that they're doing now is they give you an automatic ticket, which is unfortunate. So if you look at the inside the bus, you'll see this big kind of ball hanging. You can see it right there. That's actually a camera. And if you're parked in the bus lane, they automatically take a photo of your license plate and they mail you a ticket, which is kind of a bummer. And a lot of people don't know that. So that guy's gonna wake up with a nice, you know, $150 ticket. Anyway. Hey, Amy T, what's going on? Good to see Amy. If you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. Andrew Donovan says Intuitive Surgical uses AI heavily. Is that ISRG? Is that the ticker for that company? Now think about what robotics is going to do for surgeries, like remote surgeries. That's going to be crazy. Do you think we'll ever come to the point, and again, I just want to preface this by saying I don't have any medical experience, so everything I say about medicine, I don't have any expertise in this area, and don't follow anything I say about it, because I don't know anything about it. With that disclaimer out of the way, do you think we'll ever come to a point where, let's say you have to go in for a hip surgery, right? Or a knee replacement. Do you think we'll have like robotic doctors where the robot will be trained on like a big machine learning, a big language model, just run through all the data of every single hip replacement that's ever been done, every single knee replacement that's ever been done? And do you think robots will be able to do that by itself? Like you go in, you sit down, and just the robots just get to work on replacing your knee or replacing your hip? That would be kind of crazy. But then again, I don't know anything about how surgeries are done or performed. Hey, Mark Robinson, what's going on? Thanks so much. Wow, Gene S. has just had a cancer mass and kidney removed by robotics with surgeon-controlled remote. Well, that's amazing, but I hope you're okay. I mean, that sounds like a big procedure. Hopefully they were able to get the mass out completely and you're fine. Crypto Memes says, hey T, the Neuralink surgery was done by a robot because it needs to be precise. Yeah, Neuralink is unbelievable. Here we are outside of Central Park Tower. So I'm just trying to zipper up my jacket. But GNS, that's hopefully they got all the cancer out and you're good. Check the logic says yes, robotic doctors. For the poor, rich will have real doctors. I don't know about that.
Pretty clever.
I mean, if anything, I don't know. I mean, with the way AI and efficiency is moving, I think I may rather have the AI doctor. And that's not a knock against doctors. It's just you can't compete with all the data in the world. I mean, if you're an AI, you're making a diagnosis based on quite literally all the data that exists in the world on that specific disease or symptom. Okay, we're on 57th Street and 7th Avenue. We're right outside the Carnegie Hall. This is the NQ-R&W train station. And hopefully at some point this summer, the scaffolding will be taken down on Carnegie Hall. At least one could hope. We'll see. Andrew O'Donovan says the Turing test is interesting for those curious to how far AI and robotics have come. You know, a lot of the cyber companies like CrowdStrike and Palo Alto Networks are starting to get in gear again, and they are very AI-centric companies. You know, kind of getting back to the markets, usually the stocks and the sectors in the market that are the first ones to lead out of a new, well, into a new bull market from a bear are usually going to be your TMLs. And so far, the leader in the market is Netflix. And you do have a lot of cybersecurity companies starting to participate. I think Zscaler had a really good day today. Jay Chaudhry is the CEO there. Really good shot of 432 Park here. Danny Walker says, are you related to Thomas O'Malley, the attorney? No. I don't know why I would be related to an attorney with a different last name than me. That's like me saying, hey, Danny Walker, are you related to Muhammad Ali? I'm just busting your balls a little bit, but no, I have a different last name than him. I wonder how long this scaffolding is going to be up here. I think the only other company that we didn't talk about in depth is Microsoft. Microsoft had a huge quarter. They reported yesterday. They reported sales of $70 billion with a net income of $25.8 billion, which, again, to kind of go back to our conversation about big tech, you know, if you add up just the profitability, you know, Meta, they made $16 billion over the last 3 months. Amazon, they made $17 billion over the last 3 months. Apple made $26.65 billion over the last 3 months. Microsoft made $25.8 billion over the last 3 months. All while this kind of pandemonium was taking place. And these companies are still growing. That is very, very bullish outlook. The amount, and Alphabet too, we forgot to talk about Alphabet. That's another, you know, tens of billions of dollars in net income over the last 3 months. That's just unbelievable amount of profitability. And these are things that you want to own for the long term. So, you know, as the market starts to recover and these names start to lead, I mean, you know, I would just say read between the lines. NBA Alliance, South Korea will adopt AI extensively in the medical field due to a large shortage of doctors in the community. You know, I heard about that. NBA Alliance, that's so interesting that you bring that up, because when I was in Korea, I actually witnessed a protest at many of the hospitals there. I don't know, I'm not very well versed on the exact issue that's going on in South Korea that led to a shortage of doctors, but I vaguely understand it. I almost don't want to speak on it because I know I'm going to butcher it, but I think the government is giving some sort of incentive for people to become doctors, and the existing doctors are not happy about it because they think it's going to dilute their earnings or something to that effect. So, yeah, when I was in Seoul, I actually saw a lot of protests at hospitals. Really interesting stuff. Now, to your point, perhaps this ties into the age of abundance, so to speak, that many AI experts are talking about, like Elon Musk, and I think Bill Gates said this as well, that they foresee a future with artificial intelligence where just the world will just be so abundant, like will be so plentiful. Maybe that'll be the case. Hey, the Standing Bear, thank you so much for your very kind $5 donations this evening. Any thoughts on Ondo Crypto? Thank you. I mean, you asked me that yesterday. I just didn't have enough time to take a look at it. But I will take a look at it. It is on my action items list, but I was in a crazy day today. I was in Brighton Beach all day, but that is on my list of things to look into. But I am not familiar with it. But thank you very much for your support. And thank you very, very much for your donation. And I will get back to you on that 100%. Now we're walking down 7th Avenue. This is 7th Avenue and 53rd Street. Pretty soon we're gonna pass the old Lehman Brothers. I mean, as a little bit of anecdotal data here, for a Thursday night, and what is it, almost 10 o'clock at night, the city seems pretty lively, wouldn't you say? I mean, it seems like people are out going to shows, they're out going to restaurants. So for consumer sentiment to be so down in the dumps, could you imagine what consumer behavior would be if we had positive consumer sentiment readings? That's why I'm almost kind of skeptical a little bit of a lot of these surveys that go out. I'm not saying that the surveys are outdated or perhaps they're unreliable, but obviously you shouldn't base everything off of an anecdote. But when I was in Miami, I mean, it was just ridiculous how crowded everything was. You know, people out on a Monday night at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, at restaurants and bars. And, you know, I come back to New York City and there's just tourists everywhere. And this is supposed to be at a time when consumers are very, very pessimistic on the outlook of the economy and they want to tighten their belts and they don't want to spend. I mean, anecdotally, I really don't see it, at least not in New York City and Miami. I mean, does anybody have any feelings on that? I mean, wherever you are in the part of the country or maybe in another country? I would love to see some comments on that. You know, feel free. Where are you from in the US? Maybe we could have some California people kind of chime in. I wonder how LA is doing, or San Francisco. Andrew O'Donovan's restaurants in Houston, Texas are packed. Nina says, good evening, Tom. California is opening up with spending, especially purchases of USA-made vehicles. Hang with Mark Mom says, Orlando, Florida is saturated with tourists now. It took an hour to travel only 5 miles the other day. Crazy. That's insane. That is insane. Hey, Matthew says, hey, Tom, I'm not from California, but from Toronto. Recently visited LA and it was absolutely dead. It was very eerie. Wow. That's crazy. LA dead. Wow. I mean, New York is very, very busy, and so is Miami, Florida. I can say that with certainty. We'll just wait up a little bit. Bob Smith says, New York City seemed plenty alive when I was there last week. Interesting. I'm gonna have to take a trip to LA and find out for myself. Maybe that's just another, it could be maybe a byproduct from the fires, right? I mean, we didn't think about that. Those horrible Malibu fires, maybe, just maybe in general, a lot of people are leaving LA and the state of California for other states. All right, West 51st Street and 7th Avenue. Lark says, Tom, I would certainly love to see you do a live stream in LA. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely on the bucket list of cities I really want to go to. Just the state of California in general, I really want to visit. There's a lot of places in California I want to go. I would say LA is probably in the top 5 for sure, but I've said this before, I really want to go to San Diego and I want to go to San Francisco. So I would say San Diego is probably number 1. So if I do travel to California, San Diego is probably going to be on the top city on the list, for sure. And then number 2, probably San Francisco. I just need to travel to San Francisco when the weather is a little bit nicer. I wonder what's going to happen, or if there's any updates on the terrible fires. Nora Kins says, LA gives me anxiety. The problem is you need to drive, and I'm not a huge driver. I think I'm a little bit too spoiled in New York with everything being public transportation. If you don't have a car in LA, it's pretty much like you're stranded. You definitely need a vehicle in LA. Hey, Don is here, says MD, DC and Virginia appears business as usual everywhere. I heard that too. One of my buddies had to go down there. Took the train actually from the Moynihan train hall to DC. And he said DC was on fire, it was rocking, which was interesting to hear that because I was only in DC one time. I've been to DC once, and when I went there, I was so shocked. Just to be blunt, I didn't like DC at all. I had work meetings all day, and I got out at like 7 o'clock, and I was walking around downtown, and nothing was open. Like literally nothing was open. You know, no restaurants seemed to be open. It was just like a ghost town. I didn't know how people operate. And this was, I want to say, pretty close to the Capitol. I don't know, maybe I'm just too used to New York with everything being open all the time, and same thing in Miami. It's interesting because Miami, Florida now is actually open later in terms of like the restaurants and places to eat than New York City. After the pandemic, a lot of places in New York close early. Mark Robbins says there's a lot of people from California are moving to Texas and Arizona. Lemonade says I definitely did not like DC. Amy says you should hit San Pedro Market in LA. I'll have to check it out. Now, Los Angeles has one of the largest Chinatowns, right? I think the Chinatown in LA may be bigger than the Chinatown in New York. And the largest Chinatown in New York is in Flushing, Queens, Flushing Main Street, where I actually just posted a video of Flushing Main Street the other day. It's funny because everything that you do in Flushing is at like a 25 to 35% discount to Manhattan. Literally everything you do. Andrew Donovan says, I think the Chinatown in San Francisco is the largest. You may be right, I don't know. I thought I read that somewhere. Ike says, I've noticed a lot of New Yorkers dislike DC. It's really the same size as Baltimore. The reason why I didn't like it, there was nothing open. Like, what do people do after work, right? You get off of work at 7 p.m. and there's nothing open. Like, what do you do? I don't know what these people do all day. Oh,
so he came home.
This is now 48th Street and Broadway. But again, if you guys are enjoying the stream tonight, please leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're new. We should be on regular schedule now, so usually around 8:30, maybe 8:45, we'll be back on our regular scheduled programming. Yeah, I mean, look at this. Look at all these tourists here in Times Square. Thursday night. I think that if we go into Times Square, we may start to buffer. That's how many people are here tonight. Marx's Flushing has the biggest Chinatown, but San Francisco's is the oldest in the United States. Carl Roth's, Tom, I recently watched your Manhattan Bridge video. Very good. Yeah, Manhattan Bridge is awesome. We're definitely going to be venturing out to the boroughs a lot more. Sabrina Fair, what's going on? Happy earnings season to you. Tomahawk is here. What's going on? Manhattan Bridge is really awesome to walk over if you're by yourself. But if you have young kids or like a young family, definitely a no-go, I'd say. I'm debating on if we should try to weather the storm here. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll head over to Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, just from this vantage point, Times Square looks absolutely packed. Crazy. You can see the H&M building here. And it looks like the red steps are completely filled. Reggie44 says thank you for the Jackson Heights video. Oh yeah, I posted the Jackson Heights video earlier today. That's a really interesting neighborhood because there's so many different sub-segments of the neighborhood in Jackson Heights, if that makes sense. I believe it's the most diverse neighborhood in all of New York City. About 50%, or I think a little over 50% of the population of Jackson Heights is born somewhere other than the United States. So you have a lot of Colombian restaurants there, a lot of Indian restaurants. There's a very big Bangladesh population. It's a very unique place. Check it out, Jackson Heights, Queens. Andrew, thank you very much for your donation. I appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the stream. I mean, look at how many people are out tonight. NBA Elias says, Tom, if the jobs numbers are bad tomorrow, I think the Fed cuts sooner rather than later. Yeah, we'll see, because it's interesting, right? You know, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has really taken a firm stance against really everything that Trump has been throwing at him. And I think Trump hasn't really been treating Powell as nicely as he should, right? So I think a few things about the jobs number tomorrow. I think if we get a horrible jobs number tomorrow, but the market rallies off the back of that, I think that is confirmed that we are in a new bull market. I think we are in a new bull market right now. But to your point, if we get a really, really bad jobs number tomorrow and this market takes off and just runs, right? You're going to see every headline, every article saying, I don't understand what's going on. You know, how could we have a piss poor jobs number and we have a negative GDP print and the market is taking off? Well, it actually makes perfect sense because that is a higher probability that we'll have an easier monetary condition in the United States on top of a massive earnings rebound, right? Once all this tariff nonsense goes away. So it's going to be interesting. I think the close tomorrow is going to be a very big tell. However, NBA Elias, I don't know if you saw, I posted this on my X account yesterday. If you guys aren't following me on X, you can follow us at walks&wallstreet. Yesterday was a monthly close. So we had the monthly candle close for April, obviously, because today's May 1st. And we closed at the most unbelievably bullish hammer reversal candle I've ever seen in my career of investing. it is going to be near impossible to take out those lows. So it's just more confirmation that the bottom was put in about a week and a half ago. So yeah, if we get a terrible jobs number and the market rallies, that is essentially the market telling us that we're going to be in a more accommodative environment, which is going to mean higher growth. Because you got to remember something, right? And a lot of times people forget this as we're standing right outside the Edison Hotel. Here's the thing. The market is pricing in action that's going to happen in 6 months from now. So the job number technically tomorrow really doesn't matter at all, right? The number doesn't matter. What matters is the environment that is going to be in 6 months. So if we get a terrible jobs number, the market is going to interpret that as we're going to have easier monetary conditions, more accommodative monetary conditions coming down the pike, which is going to lead to higher growth, because in 6 months, we'll probably be in a very different environment as it relates to these trade talks and tariffs. That's a really good point. We'll probably talk about it tomorrow too, obviously. Shane, thank you very much for your very generous $2 donation. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for your support. This is the Brooklyn Chop House. Hey, Stephanie Stearns, thank you so much. Florida boy in Atlanta, thanks for joining us. Hey, Mike NYC, welcome. Good to see you, Mike. Town Now. So speaking of markets, money, and mayhem, did anyone watch Catherine Fitz on Tucker Carlson? I did not. Let me, I'll take a screenshot of that and maybe I'll check it out. Yeah, Reggie 44 says bit going towards 100. Are you referring to Bitcoin? Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll probably take out highs and run to 150,000 this cycle, probably. KM Ramsey, what's going on? I don't know if I'd be able to live here though. I mean, you have condos and apartments all over here. Just too crowded for living, I think. We got some pizza. Very cool. We're close to Restaurant Row, by the way. Like, look at these apartments here. You guys think you could live right here on 8th Avenue? I don't know. I think I'd get sick of that after a while. Just too much transiency outside of the house, I think. Who knows? Hey, Jean-Paul. Says, I would not mind Long Island City near the water. Yeah, Long Island City is awesome, man. I actually just filmed a walking tour around Long Island City just the other day, and I'll be posting it tomorrow. So tomorrow night's video will be a walk around Long Island City, as well as the Long Island City Industrial Park. Michelle K says, no, I'd rather live at Sutton Place. Perhaps Sutton Place will make a little bit of a comeback, a little bit of a resurgence. Hey, Brian says, good evening, everybody. Late getting in tonight, wondering if Bill Ackman's comments from just a few hours ago made the discussion. They have not. What did Mr. Ackman say? I was maybe he said it before I started streaming, but please enlighten us on what he said. Usually, I mean, I'm a big Bill Ackman fan. However, he's he shoots from the hip a lot of times, Mr. Ackman. I jokingly, well, not really jokingly, but I made a tweet on the night the market was like limit down. We were hitting circuit breakers. And Bill Ackman was firing off all of these like lambast diatribe worth of tweets about how there's some conspiracy that Howard Lutnick is, you know, convinced Trump to give him a job in government so he could sabotage the economy so Cantor Fitzgerald can make some money off of their bond trade. And I'm like, okay, this is getting absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, this has to be the bottom. And so far, that was literally the exact tick on futures, like the exact bottom, which is kind of hilarious. Brian says his concern is the downward pressure he feels the tariffs will have on American companies. Feels like time is on our side if the tariffs are paused. I'll have to take a look. He probably wrote like a novel on X about it. But thank you for bringing it up. I'll take a look at it. I know that Pershing Square is very, very long Uber right now. I think that's one of their newest investments. In full disclosure, I'm also long Uber. Small position, but I am long the stock. Cut back over to the east side. I'm seeing everybody saying the Knicks won. So is it playoff basketball now? Because I remember briefly, maybe it was last year we were doing a live stream around Madison Square Garden, and I think the Knicks games were just getting out. I don't know if it's playoff season or not. I don't know. Reggie44 says yes. Rick says it's round one. Copy that. Got it. I feel like the Knicks made it pretty far last year. KM Rams, this is how far are you from Times Square? We're technically in Times Square now, on a technical sense. So we are currently there now. We're just cutting crosstown. David, we'll see you later. Thanks so much for joining. We'll try to go over by Radio City and head back up, because I have to go back to the office anyway at some point to get my stuff. I also wonder if Japan is still ripping right now. If anybody could check the Nikkei index, I think it was up about 1.5% when I started the stream. Oh wow, Robert Parker, what's up? This is the Knicks won the series tonight. Very cool. So I'm sure that everybody's going crazy near Madison Square Garden tonight. Someone's asking, should you buy a Tesla? I'd say yeah, might as well. Pull the trigger on it, unless you're on the fence about a Rivian or Lucid. I want to try both of those vehicles. I want to test drive Lucid, and I also want to test drive Rivian. Now currently I have a Model 3 and a Tesla Model S, but they're not my cars. My building, which is one of the reasons why I moved into this new building, is they give the residents a Tesla Model 3 and a Tesla Model S. And the good thing is nobody uses it besides me, because the vast majority of people who live in the building, they have their own cars. So I tend to drive the Model S quite a bit, and it's probably one of the most impressive vehicles I've ever driven in my life, to be quite frank. I don't think it's technically called autopilot. I think it's called driver assist. You just press one little button on the steering wheel and it totally just drives itself. It's really, really crazy.
Good.
KM Ramsey says there's boxing tomorrow in Times Square. No way. Everything in Miami says the Rivian truck, better build quality than the Tesla. Well, I ran a poll on X asking the audience what they think, and by and large, people agree that the build quality of the Rivian is better, but the software capabilities and the UI is better on the Tesla, which makes sense because Tesla is really a software company. Top Cat says, Tom, if you like Korea, you'd probably love Japan. I really want to go to Tokyo. That's on my bucket list. I want to go to, well, I'm going back to Korea and then I'm going to Singapore. I just don't know if I'll have time to go to Japan, but we'll see. Kana Amps, there's no range for me on the Tesla vehicles. What do you mean by that? Here's Fox News. We're by Del Frisco's, which is my favorite steakhouse. Nina says, Japan, Tom, is my mother's homeland. Oh, wow. Love that. Wow, guys, look at the line here for Adele's. This is probably a three-hour line here. These people are in for a 3-hour long wait. That is really crazy. I don't know if I'd ever be able to wait on this line. And this line really moves at a snail's pace too. Wow. Now it is good. This is by far the best halal food in the city. This is honestly the best halal food I've ever had in my entire life, to be quite frank. But is it good enough to wait for 3 hours?
I know. So what's so good about it?
I'd say no. Now, when I used to live right up the block, I used to live right here at Central Park South. I would only go to Adele's at 2 o'clock in the morning on nights when it was pouring raining because there was no line. So I would just come out of the apartment, grab the umbrella, and only wait in line like 15 minutes. But if it's a nice summer night like it is out tonight, oh, there's no way. There's no way I'm gonna be able to wait in that line. No way. Really great view of Radio City Music Hall here. The city overall looks great tonight. Maybe tomorrow we'll go to Tribeca. Assuming it's not absolutely pouring raining. We'll see.
Oh, there's a reason now they're
Hey, Elliot Wade Reviews. Tom, what did you think? Makes Adele so good. I don't know. I just think I like the. I really don't know how to describe why I think it's so good, but you'll just have to take my word for it that it is very good. Reggie says, Tom, would I consider streaming in Korea? Probably not. I do want to upload a lot more standalone regular videos, but live streams in Korea, probably not. Just because there's been a lot of issues there with people, other streamers like harassing people, and I don't want to be lumped in with that. Hey, sunshine after rain, what's up? When I went to Austin, Texas, they were extremely big on food trucks. There was like a food truck on every corner in Austin. Northbound of 52nd Street and Avenue of the Americas. Charles Schwab is to the right. I think the new Charles Schwab is Robin Hood now. Check out the Steinway Tower. Red uses Tom, did you buy more Tesla stock when it was down? I don't own any. However, it just goes against all my rules. I don't buy stocks that far off the high. But I do say the risk is to the upside here for Tesla. And I love Tesla. Hey, Variety 1985, what's up? Thanks so much for joining us. And you know, we also had a few major key insider buys on Tesla as well. We talked about Apple earnings today. They approved about a $100 billion buyback. IBIT and GLD. Before the follow-through day, in my actively managed account, I was about 30% IBIT and GLD, 70% cash. I've since trimmed almost all of my gold position and rotated almost all of that into Bitcoin, and then went long a lot of stock. I'm almost 100% invested now after these follow-through days. Which means I probably should hedge on Friday, because this market has had, how many up days now has the S&P 500 had? This is going on 8. So we're bound to get a little bit of a pullback. So if we have like a 1% drawdown on the day on the S&P, a lot of the stuff that I own is probably going to go down 3 or 4%. Which is normal, but that's just it's a big drawdown. So NBA lies, Apple is down about $8 per share after hours. I also think Amazon had a little bit of a negative reaction to earnings too. I think everything's down after hours, maybe like 4 or 5%, give or take. I just really, really love the Steinway Tower here. I'll head back to the office. But yeah, I guess as we close out the stream here, I was thinking about I'll always still do the streams because I love doing the streams, but I want to try to put out something that's a little bit more concise. Maybe like a 10, 15, maybe 20-minute standalone video discussing the markets. But I'm contemplating the format of doing that. I may have to create a second channel for that, and I'd probably put out a video Monday through Friday. Just because I get a lot of emails, I get an overwhelming amount of emails saying that people can't, join for the full 2-hour stream, which I get. So a lot of people miss stuff. I think I'll have to try to spin up something else. If anybody has any recommendations, let me know. I was gonna do it behind my desk, but then I don't know. I gotta figure it out. Wow, Madison 32 says Bitcoin went up over 97,000 tonight. Well, that's going to be great. That's great. I think we'll probably have $150,000 Bitcoin this cycle, which is going to be fantastic. Stephanie Stearns, that is true. Stephanie says let them watch the replay. You already give enough time away for free, in my opinion. That's true. I do dedicate a lot of time to this. But it's difficult for people to watch the full 2 hours, and people do miss a lot of stuff. And I can break things down, you know, maybe into 10 to 15 minute chunks. I'm also going to start up the newsletter again now that everything is back to normal. Man, so much scaffolding here. This is crazy. Mitty Matty says, did the fake Walks and Wall Street crypto Twitter accounts get removed? I think so. That's another big problem too that I've been having. There's been so many fake accounts impersonating me, soliciting like different cryptocurrency investments and things like that, which has been really frustrating. So as a forewarning again, if anybody contacts any of you claiming to be me, saying that I'll, you know, give me some of your money and I'll trade Bitcoin or stocks and give you a big return, I don't do any of that. And I would never reach out to anybody for any of that stuff. So just know that it is a scam. And the amount of scam accounts are just so overwhelming. And I can't see any of the scam accounts because what they do is they block me, right? So the scammer will create an account, pretend to be me, but then they'll block me so I can't see them. And the only way I see them is when people like screenshot the direct messages and like DM me saying, hey, is this your second account? You know, I'm thinking about giving you $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. I'm like, no, don't think about giving me $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. I don't want your Bitcoin. Anyway, scammers must rake in, I mean, millions of dollars to fraud. Oh, I thought he slammed into the, I thought the car slammed into the pole there. Anyway, we'll figure something out. If anybody has any suggestions, let me know. Wow, Mitty Matty says, I thought it was you, honestly. And they had some decent communication with me. I blocked them after seeing your post. Yeah, I would never, ever, 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 ever in a million years ask anybody for money or ask to raise money for anything, or just not what I do. All right, we're almost back at the office here. Look at that shot of 432 Park. All right, everyone. I think we'll end it here. I must go. But But thank you all for joining. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll see you all tomorrow at 8:45. It's good to chat with you all. And tomorrow we'll talk about the jobs numbers. It should be interesting, and hopefully we have a pretty strong close to end the week. Looks like futures are printing to the upside, and I think this is going to be good. This may be a very, very profitable summer. Already is, but anyway, Alex, thank you so much. DM, appreciate it. Lemonade, all of our moderators. Be safe. Top Cat, The Mighty Bull, Hang with Mark Mom, DC322, Mohammed, Sue Rollins, Kanye Ruiz, Sally. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Signing off from 432 Park.